So 3 years ago, I made a life change. I decided to pack up all of my things, leave all of my friends and family, and head to a state in a city where I only knew a couple people. I left Atlanta and moved to Florida in pursuit of my master's degree. I lived in Atlanta for 17 years, so my life was in Atlanta. But I decided to take a step out on faith because I know that I wanted more things for myself. I finally decided to pursue my master's degree, so heading to Florida, I hoped for something that I had yet received. So I went definitely on faith. I got to Florida and things were good. I found a good job. I was in school and, I had my couple friends here and there and things were good. I wasn't part of any kind of church yet because it was kind of hard for me I was kind of just church hopping here and there. And I finally found, in the process of church hopping, I finally was able to find one church that kind of stuck with my heart. So I started slowly attending that church. Fast forward to a year ago. After being a part of this church for quite some time, it felt like home. And a year ago, I decided to make a vow to God that I would make some drastic changes in my life until I was ready to do something different. And it wasn't just making a vow to God, but it was making a vow to myself. And in that process of making this vow and changing my whole life in a way, a year ago in 2 months maybe, I have to say that was the hardest year in my life. In that year, there was issues with school, finances. I lost my grandfather last year, and there was just a lot of attacks on my life. And I kind of started to doubt faith for a minute because I felt like, God, I'm giving everything to you. I'm giving up so much of myself and so many things that I want to do for you that I know I probably shouldn't be doing, but it was satisfaction for myself instead of satisfaction for you. And I started to question whether my decision was a right decision. Well, as the year started to pass, I started to understand that I had to leave everything in God's hands. And it was hard because relationships, friendships, school, not knowing whether or not you're going to be able to complete something or what's the next step. Stepping blindly into something is the scariest thing that you can ever imagine. Not knowing what is in front of you is something that's really heart-wrenching. And I had to learn to kind of just give myself away, not to no pun intended on this song, I give myself away. But I had to give myself away, and I had to understand that my life is not my life, that it's God's life for me. And when I remembered that, I felt like it was like this huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. Like I was finally able to breathe. It was like that moment where you're just completely, you feel like there's a boa constrictor around your lungs and you can't breathe. It's like that moment where you're just like, finally. And it was hard, and it still is hard. There's so many things that the flesh desires, that our hearts and our mind desires, but I've learned that by leaving everything in God's hands, as those desires are no longer existent, they just kind of disappear. I'm human, and there are gonna be things that I want to do and things that I want to be a part of, but I've learned that in order for me to live the life that God wants me to live and the life that I want to live for myself, that I had to let myself go. This is Muneca, and this is my testimony.